Welcome to Rauta's Underground Trio. Once again, we have 3 different bands of 3 different styles from 3 different countries around the world. First, from alphabetical order, and then from worst to best. Let's do it. First, we have this band, Absentia Lunae, with an actual demo recording put into an album. This is already quite a few years old, as it was kind of a reissue later on. Marching Forgotten Ashes. Then we have very recent tape from early 2025. Finnish band Gràb Violator with Full Moon Terror. Technically speaking an EP, but really good count as a demo for whatever it's worth or matters. And then we have finally Gràb from Germany with the album called Zeitlang. And no, this is not actually alphabetical order, I figured just out. Anyway, this is from Germany and this is black metal. Now a little bit background information about each band before we go, in my opinion, from worst to best. And here it goes. We have this Absentia Lunae, which is a band from Italy, founded around 2002 and got actually buried, I was reading, last year in 2024. They already had one pause around 2013 or so. So what it's worth is that this is a band that hasn't been really active ever since 2014. Did 3 albums during those years, meaning they had their active years around 2009, 2014, give or take, with the albums 3 in fact. And then finally this one, which was, like I said, originally a demo, but later put into an album format. And this is very early production of the band's style. And as such, you should definitely react to it as such. So, like I said, the band was really active around actually 2006 to 2014 with their 3 albums. And this one, originally from 2004, is obviously a little bit older than that. Now, I remember reviewing their album material back in the days, and they were a band that gradually got better over the years. But these early releases, not only just this demo release on album now, but also their early album, was really like kind of a mess. First of all, the drumming sounds like a really some kind of a boring drum machine. And while there is nothing outstandingly wrong with, drum machine as such, it's often, something like, okay, you have work in progress, you have not yet gotten a drummer, but you will get over it. And even if you have, when it sounds like a machine, nothing really saves that ass. Now, I'm not going to say that's the main problem here. It's just something that first takes you. Then you're like, okay, maybe they actually have some good riffs. Maybe they have great songwriting. And to be honest, in my opinion, this is a little bit of a mess. There are some parts where it just kind of gets to one direction, then another, and it's overall a little like, what the hell is going on? What are these guys doing? Like I said, it got better with the albums and all, but here he is. He's like, we want to do melodic black metal. Yeah, let's add some chaotic parts there. Let's go for a little bit symphonic. Not that symphonic. Let's go a little bit different directions. So it's almost like, what are you guys trying to do? This isn't really, any kind of a typical subgenre band, which is a great thing for those who look something different and all. But when it comes to some kind of a subgenre of black metal, which is there to, define a given style, be it symphonic black metal, raw end of black metal, violent Marduk, kind of a fast, furious black metal, whatever. This is kind of just, missing the dots here and there and just kind of avoiding the typical lanes. Like I said, it's good if you're looking for something different. However, if you're looking for something that kind of sticks to the tracks which you're already familiar with, given styles, all that stuff, well, yeah, this is not going to do the trick. Similar artists say that this is related to bands like 1349, which I really couldn't say with the first demo recording. And then a band called Melancholia Estatica from Italy also, early on. Now, that's something I haven't heard, so I can only take other people's word for it. But I would say, unless you are already an existing fan of Absentia Lunae, there's really no reason to start with this. Probably no reason to start with this at all. I mean, it's only for the fans of the given band. I would say their latest album, Vorwärts, which was 2014, and so that should give you a little bit of indication of the activity level. Start with that if you need to start with the band. And if you like it, go back in history in kind of our anti-chronological order, and then you get it. But this by no means I cannot really recommend it to, except for the fans of the given band. Then from Finland, indeed, we have Great Violator, a band that started already 2007, did a couple of albums later on, around 2019, 2022, and some splits and whatever along the years. So I don't know why they decided to go back to, let's revert to Monkey, let's go back to old school ways, because this is a very, very simplistic, self-financed tape. No images, no lyrics, nothing but the very basic recording information, and that's about it. And of course, the actual tape. This runs for 17 minutes, and for review purposes, I got the files from the band because my tape player is busted, and I always say, please don't send me tapes for that reason, but of course, I will review your tapes if I get the files. So that's the case with here, getting the files from the vocalist, bass player, Josh. Now, I know Josh, he's a great guy, and I am kind of prone to say yes to nice guys, nice people in general, even if I'm not the biggest fan of the given band. Now, but the previous album, Read, was kind of a disappointment because it was somehow not that well-working combination of black death and thrash metal. Sometimes it felt hard to figure out whether they wanted to go more into thrash death or black thrash. And as a result, it's kind of a weird hybrid combo of that stuff. Now, it gets either even better or even worse with this one, because this is kind of a punky. Now, it starts with some kind of an intro, synthesizer intro, which really takes me back to the early 90s video games and all that stuff. We're talking about Commodore Amiga 500 and the likes, Atari ST and all. So those who know the video game music back in the days, which were like the better level of what Burzum and Mortis and other people started doing later on, well, this is exactly that. It's kind of a nice and retro-ish, but has very, very little to do with the music. So why it is there, I do not know. But intro is an intro, and you shouldn't judge recording by it no more than by its cover. But what starts after that is actually pretty good, kind of a punky black thrash. It's kind of resonating with a little bit of Darkthrone in the mix, but very, very much kind of a punky feeling to it. Now, obviously, Darkthrone did a lot of that too, eventually, along the road, so can't really say it's that different, but obviously this doesn't sound like a Darkthrone in essence. However, it starts losing its momentum, and by its, I mean the whole tape, when it goes on and on. So throughout the 7 minutes, you first have these pretty nice intro, which is weird but nice, and then you have this strong song that really opens the whole tape, and towards the end it loses its moment gradually. Not by big steps, not by nothing drastic, but still. And I would say now I understand what's the forte of this band. It's doing the kind of a black thrash with that punky stuff. Now obviously, because of this is very, very home recording like demo, it sounds like it's done in a rehearsal room, probably not, but it has this homemade feeling, and that kind of contributes to the whole feeling of it. And in that sense, it actually sounds, in a way, more powerful than the full album. But maybe it's also because with 17 minutes, you don't really get that, bored, tired, or whatever feeling that you might get with, full albums when they're not that great. Now, I'm saying these guys are moving to the right direction, but they still need to get rid of that clutter, that kind of a, entity tape here. There's certain cool elements here and there, but overall it's a little bit of a mixed bag of goodies. Like I said, the early tracks, golden. The later on, you're losing it. But anyway, let's keep thumbs up for these guys. It's an interesting project nonetheless. But the best of the pile comes from Germany, in my opinion, and this band started in 2015, so 10 years in the game, and they did this first album 2021. It has been in my pile for quite some time, and I remember making note in my review file that this doesn't really need to be even reviewed. I don't know why I even got it if it wasn't for review purposes. I just wrote it down for some reason, maybe because that was what I was told to. But anyway, here it is, a nice looking 4-folding digipack release. And like I said, their later album got out a little bit later, but obviously I haven't heard it. It's quite new, and this has been waiting for its turn. What turns out is really, really soothing, nice sounding German black metal in a very, very modern fashion. There is nothing raw here. There is nothing violent or anything cavernous, dungeon-like, evil, mysterious and all that. This is stuff more like the atmospheric black metal, but not exactly your cheap Burzum copy, but something more, I don't know, inspiring. Meaning that this album actually has a lot of strong points, and it's only kind of a weird that it lasts for over 60 minutes and doesn't bore you down totally. Because even a lot of stronger albums, when you kind of overextend the stay, it tends to happen. Now, I'm not saying this 61 minutes is really that great of a thing, because to be honest, there is a little bit fluff here and there, a little bit that clutter, which might feeling like it's a little bit filler. But overall, this is a great stuff. First of all, it sounds, really, really fitting for this kind of music, meaning the production is very, very solid, really thought of, really, just fitting for the genre. And mostly this goes mid-tempo, which then again rather fits, the atmospheric idea what this is supposed to do. There are some faster parts, but they're more like seasoning, not defining things on the album, which I think is a great thing overall, because the forte of this album is definitely staying around their comfort zone, the mid-tempo zone. So it doesn't really get that doomy, but it's definitely not one of those fast-paced albums which you are probably, already kind of done with. Now, my point here is, this is exactly the kind of a newcomer in the black metal field you might like positively, especially when you're not expecting anybody to really surprise you anymore. So while not outstanding as great, it's definitely doing some nice waves here, in my opinion, and totally worth checking out. Now, obviously some people have already heard the new album and might be actually getting from that album back to this early one. For me, it's gonna be the different route, obviously, from this to the newer one whenever I have the time. But this piqued my interest. Previously band name Gràb. What the hell it even means? Grey, I was told. So it's not really the most, interesting name. This album cover is not that interesting. Look, a grandpa with some dude stalking this and a lantern. What the hell? But anyway, beyond the cover, beyond the basic idea of this band and album, you will find an interesting release, and that should count for something. So give it a go if you're into atmospheric black metal done right. Now, links are provided in the description box for your listening pleasure, and I hope you like some of them. All three different styles, so hard to compare to one another. This is just my take. Feel free to disagree, and off you go. Bye bye.